Hi, my name is Jim and welcome to my workbench. Today we'll be taking a look at the Ocio Creativo Albatros, my first wooden ship kit. We'll take a look at what's in the kit as well as a look at the instructions and plans. So let's get started. Okay, let's open it up and see what we have. Very well packed. Here's the case with many of the small parts. We have the ship's boat, rope for all the rigging, block and tackle, a lot of block and tackle, belaying pins, winches, cannons. So, first of the instructions, we'll take a closer look at those later. Nope, we have a little more tape here. More directions, along with the ship's plans. More to come on those later. Planking for the hull. A lot of planking. Dowels for the ship's masts and spars. More planking, a couple of different colors. And the ship's sails. Thank God they're pre-sewn. I have zero seamstress skills. A lot of small nails for holding planking and decking. And the keel and hull pieces. Let's open it up and take a look at these. If I can find my scalpel. One of the things I noticed, while many of the laser cut pieces I've seen in the past have shown some pretty bad burn marks on them, but yet these look very cleanly cut. See both sides? The deck, the false deck. Yes, very cleanly cut. I like this a lot. This will clean up nicely. Now, the thing I've been interested in doing is taking a look at the plans. One of the common themes I ran into when I was reading reviews of the various kits was the difficulty of understanding the plans, or the poor translation, or no translation at all. Well, here are some instructions that are in Spanish, which I don't speak Spanish, unfortunately. Oh, this looks like the same instructions in English. With a parts list and some very clear drawings on how to run the rigging, which is something I've been a little worried about, as that can be very complex. Yep, very clear. Here's a good example of a clear drawing on the rigging. They use red to make the rigging stand out from the sail. These are very nicely done. They're going to be very easy to follow. Here's illustrated instructions on assembling the hull and the deck furnishings. Looks like the directions are in multiple languages, but mostly rely on the illustrations themselves as opposed to a lot of explanations, which I'm okay with that. Now this is a 1 to 100 scale model, which means we'll be working in metric. And according to the drawing, this is a half-scale drawing. Assuming that's accurate, I'll be able to take measurements directly off the drawing, which is very nice. This is a 1-to-1 showing the spar off of the bow. I want to show you the quality of the drawings, so let me bring you in a little closer so that you can get a good look. All right, let's take a closer look at the plans. We'll start off with the illustrated directions. Here you can see it shows the assembly of the hull. We've got some close-up pictures showing how the different pieces go together, some of the work you may have to do to get it to fit properly. Down here in the corner is the beginning of laying out the planking on the false deck. Following that is a couple of pages of basically just finishing the hull, laying out the planking the hull itself. And then here you can see we've got the second color of planking. It's actually a second layer that goes on the bottom of the ship. Actually looks very nice. After that comes assembling the deck, all the furnishings. You can see we start putting the railings on, the ship's boat. We start putting in some of the blocks, and then all the furnishings on the deck, different hatches, the ship's wheel, some of the guardrails, etc. Even got a cannon here. If I remember correctly, this ship's got 8 cannons on it. This starts showing some of the mast work. Right here we've got the bow spar that holds the jib. Some detailed look at how that is held together. We begin to start seeing some of the details of the mast, showing some of the blocks that will be tied off to the mast for the standing rigging. Down here you can see where we start putting the blocks on the deck itself to tie off the standing rigging to it. A little bit of detail on how that'll look. And then here's something that's very important to me. Show some detailed drawings of how to actually tie off the rigging. Never done anything like this before, so that's going to be very, very useful. And there is a lot of that type of detail in these plans. You can see where they show the climbing rigging for getting up to the top of the mast. Look at some of the rigging off of the masts, how the mast will look overall on the ship. Look at the spars, some detailed look at how the rigging goes on the spars. And then finally, an overall look at the completed ship. Now for the actual ship's plans, here's an overall look at the ship. This is a scale 1:2 drawing. So you can see this is going to be a pretty good sized model when it's complete. Inside is both half scale and 1:1 drawings. This sheet over here shows a detailed look at a lot of the pieces that go on the deck, the furnishings, interior and side view of the hull itself. And each part is identified by either a letter or a number that you cross-reference to the parts list on that particular page for those parts. And one of the things I mentioned earlier was I thought that they had done a good job translating from Spanish to English. Well, it turns out when I took a closer look at the plans themselves, the parts are listed on here in Spanish. However, on the sheets that got the English translations, it's also got an English parts list that directly cross-references to these numbers, so it'll be pretty easy to follow along. Here we see some more detailed look at the bow spar. Detailed look at the front and back mast, how they'll assemble, different hardware that goes on it, how they're held together. And one of the things you'll notice is the masts themselves are actually tapered. Well, the dowels that come with the kit are not tapered, so that's something that's going to have to be done by hand. Another nice thing is each page where they've got the 1:1 drawings, down in the corner they have an overall view of the ship and show where those particular pieces actually fit on the ship. With the mast, not so important, but some of the other parts, it helps. Finally, we've got a look at some of the spars and the rigging work on those. And lastly, identification of all of the ship's sails. There's 9 sails on this ship. That's going to be a lot of sails. And turns out that there is some sewing involved. Putting the rigging on the sails does involve doing some sewing, so my seamstress skills are going to have to improve. So that's a good look at the plans. Overall, I'm pretty happy with them. I think they'll be fairly easy to follow. and a lot of fun. So there's a quick look at the Ocio Creativo Albatros kit. A little about why I chose that kit. It's certainly not one of the easiest on the market to do, but it looked within my skill, and it's an attractive ship, something that I thought I would enjoy building. And also, when I looked up a little information about it online, I found it had a kind of interesting history, and I did promise you some of the history. It's a two-masted schooner built in the Netherlands in 1920. Originally used as a pilot ship in the North Sea, basically guiding other ships. It then wound up in use by the German government as a radio station ship during World War II. It went through a couple of other owners after that. It was even featured in a movie, Twilight of the Gods, before it wound up at the Ocean Academy Limited in 1959. There it became a little infamous for sinking in a sudden squall, losing 4 of the teenage crew and the cook in the process. I got this article off of Wikipedia. This is really just a brief synopsis of it. If you're interested, I'll put the link in the show notes. So that's my first YouTube video. Hope you liked it. I plan on doing about 1 a week on this kit, life and work permitting. Please leave me comments what I did right, more importantly, what I did wrong. I'd like to improve myself and give you content that you enjoy watching. Also, I'd like to take the time to thank 2 people, a couple of channels that I found while I was researching how to start this. I'd never done anything like this before, and I didn't even know how to begin. I found 2 channels that have a wealth of information to help you get started. Primal Video and Think Media. I got a lot of both equipment information and how-to information from these 2 channels. So Justin and Sean, thank you very much for the time you dedicate to helping people like me get started. It's very much appreciated. So until next time,